So namaste and welcome everyone. This is the final event in our book launch party for this beautiful new book, Unbreakable Spirit, 18 Stories of Feminine Resilience, Blessings, and Renewal, which is an Amazon bestseller. It's been a bestseller for like 5 days in over 3 categories. And we're super excited about that. We have many of the authors with us here. And we're going to go through 3 interviews and then have a sharing session. And let me bring up first Cheyenne. If you want to hold it, you're going to have to hold it to your chest since you have your background on blur. And then we will take a photo of you. I love it. Gorgeous. Beautiful. All right. So Cheyenne's story is from violation to soul initiation in the Sacred Valley of Peru. Yeah, and let me introduce Cheyenne. Cheyenne Marie Wright is an astrologer, a soul tender, and an embodiment midwife. Cheyenne says, I weave the ancient wisdom of astrology with somatics to activate and guide clients' expansion of their soul-led life. Soul embodiment experiences intertwine sacred body intelligence with the astrological blueprint and timeline, threaded together by ritual to support the actualization of soul callings. I develop my method through direct experience and ignite others to follow their soul's voice through transformational sessions writing, such as being in this book, and walking my talk. My own soul embodiment journey was initiated through childhood experiences of poverty, a 3-year dark night of the soul that sparked brutal yet beautiful spiritual awakenings, and living in Peru. These initiations kindled the actualization of my living my dream. I always love it when we get to hear that people are living their dreams. Living my dream as a traveling writer and philanthropic entrepreneur. All right. From lived experience and with fierce love, I guide those ready to expand into the next level of their soul-led lives in co-creation with the celestial elders. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So Cheyenne, you tell a gripping story of, well, I don't want to give it away, a gripping story of a very close violation. Do you want to tell us what happened? Take us back to the beginning when you realized you might be in danger.
Yes, I was about 7 months living in the Sacred Valley of Peru, so I was more used to the culture, but things were still very new for me. I didn't speak any Spanish when I arrived there, so I was still very much a beginner. And yeah, landing into what felt like a completely new planet in many ways. And I needed to run errands in a city that's about an hour away from the valley. So I had a taxi driver I'd worked with several times, and the way it worked was to hire a taxi driver for a day who would take you out to the city and drive you where you needed to go and bring you back. That was the first time we ever did a trip that long, and we had a very friendly connection. We were always having small talk. It was helping me learn my Spanish, and it just came down to, after a full day of running errands, this split second, like I didn't even really consciously think about my water bottle because I ran out of the car and ran back in. And I think just that level of comfort, especially after a whole day of being together and several trips, it's like it didn't even register. And um, shortly after getting back in the car, he was very curious about what I had eaten and what was in my water bottle. And it even took me some time to go there because my mind was not thinking that was gonna happen, and then I felt that it was happening.
And what was happening?
Um, I could really feel, a sense of, like, a drug activating in my body, and a familiarity of what that feeling is like, um, and just such a shock and a moment of, like, I couldn't believe it was happening. I just couldn't believe it was happening, and it took layers of really settling into the reality, like, it's pitch black outside.
Yeah.
I'm alone in a taxi with a man in a foreign country, and little by little, I started to feel my body, losing motor functions and felt like I was just right on the edge of completely losing all my motor functions.
Mm. And you were going into a mountain pass. You weren't like in the city where there were other people to roll down your window.
Yeah, by the time I was really realizing, because it where we left the city as this was all happening was right at the beginning of the road that is at 13,000 feet elevation with hardly any cell service and, there are lights somewhat along the way, but you're pretty much up there on your own for a majority of that drive.
So what I'm getting is you're in a very vulnerable position with somebody that you had trusted, and you're realizing that he may have put something in your water bottle when you ran that errand, and there's a high potential for something really bad about to happen.
Yeah.
I just want to pause for a minute because this moment is so relatable when we get into a situation. I think all of us as women can relate to maybe one or many moments in our lives where we were on a street and someone came up to us. We were in an apartment where we realized we were in danger. This is such a clear moment of danger.
Mhm.
And you write about a couple of interesting things. One thing that I thought was really interesting was you mentioned you had two enemies or that you were fighting two fronts. Do you want to say what those were?
Yeah, of course, this man and his intentions and the drug that he had put into my body, but also what emerged was some really deeply embedded, what I call the wounded feminine programming of this just total denial of the reality that a man could do this to me. So that I had an indescribably powerful, my own voice in my mind just completely gaslighting my experience that
Mm,
there's no way this isn't happening.
wow. So you heard that voice. How did you manage that voice? What did you say to it or do with it?
That whole experience felt so beyond conscious management.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
really at the, like, and I write this at one point in the book that it's like it felt like I was sitting in the middle of the stage of these different parts of me in their spotlight and all of them just blaring, the part of my physical body that felt like it was collapsing and just wanting to completely dominate the situation. Uh, this voice in my head denying what was going on and really claiming this isn't happening. And then the part of me that was completely at peace, like the soul part of me that's just observing everything happening, and the human part of me in the middle of it. Like, uh, and it was such a, I mean, I want to say moment to moment, but it was like millisecond to millisecond where to put my energy and attention to. Uh,
Hmm.
and really being able to allow, as I mentioned earlier on in the book, being able to allow that soul part of me to just take the center stage. But that was even a very unconscious act. It was I feel more a result of my spiritual practice over time. And we even
Okay.
spoke about this at one point, Laura, that when we're um, building our spiritual practices, there's usually a point of initiation. It's like, let's put this into practice. And that's really what that experience felt like for me.
You needed it. You needed that history of having been practicing in order to survive this.
Yeah, exactly.
And you write about something that happened right before this that you believe was getting ready to protect you. Do you want to tell
Mhm.
us what that was?
Yeah, the first errand I had to run that day was going into the bank, and there was just an egregious line all the way out the door around the corner, and of course, inside many people. And of course, that can be frustrating for anyone, but it was unusually frustrating for me. I felt like I was going to have a panic attack, which is not something I'd ever experienced before. Um, and it was so, I mean, it was like a smaller version of what happened in the taxi. It was so overwhelming that something in me clicked, when you're having these spiritual practices, and suddenly it was like the muscle memory clicked on that I needed to do something kind of extreme to gather my energy and center myself. And what happened was it just drew me inward to a really deeply meditative state as I was sitting in the middle of the bank. And it
Okay.
was just so bizarre when I left the bank. I really couldn't understand, why did that just happen? And then
Mhm.
it was later as everything was coming into my awareness in the taxi, and I had the split second reality that the only real power I had in that moment was to go into that inner sanctuary. So it clicked, well, that's why my soul or spirit had me drop so far into that inner sanctum earlier on in the day, because it made it that much easier to call on that again in the moment.
Uh-huh. And so what happened in the situation when you went into that place, that sanctuary, while your body's being drugged and losing
Yeah.
function?
I knew to call on my ancestors. I'd been working really closely with a great grandmother who I knew very well till I was 16. And that's when she passed, and her husband. I just felt that like I needed something bigger than me that I really trusted in to tell me what was going on, because of the confusion and deception of these different parts of me denying what was going on. And when my grandmother said yes, the worst was happening. That's what I asked. She said yes. It gave me a sense of resolve. Like, I have to just completely drop into this moment and face what's happening right now. Um, and when that happened, I think that was the moment of being able to surrender into that muscle memory of letting my soul lead. I was completely and utterly shocked that this power, beyond any power I've ever felt in my life, emanated through my body and created this egg-like containment around me that felt like steel. I mean, it really felt like metal surrounding me. So even though I was in the front seat right next to the driver and he was talking to me and asking questions and acting like nothing happened, I felt like I've been telling people this is my superhero origin story, because that's what it felt like. I felt like a superhero on one element at the same time that I was having to use every ounce of my physical strength to keep myself upright and to just I felt like I needed to act completely normal. Like that was essential to maintaining the shift in power dynamic, was to not show any weakness.
And
Um,
you didn't want him to know that the drug was having an effect,
yes, I wanted to completely um, give the illusion that I wasn't under any kind of duress.
which you were.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go, you talk to great grandmother, you say, "Is this horrible thing the worst happening?" She says, "Yes, it is." And then somehow you just go into this place and you feel whew, like a steel protection around
Hmm.
you. And you had to maintain that. And then what happened?
An hour-long drive that felt like 10 years.
Okay.
Um, but the way it progressed was really, managing the diminishing story that was happening in my mind into realizing I need, like, how can I figure out any kind of way of taking action to get myself out of this situation? And
Yeah, how did you get out?
well, I was inspired to send it if I could. I didn't know if any of my messages would go through with the cell signal cutting out, but I was inspired to send a text message to a male friend of mine, because I felt like, again, it was kind of calling on whatever external affirmation I could get to give me that boost of strength to do what I needed to do. And I was able to get through that friend, and he affirmed, like, as soon as you get to the first town in the Sacred Valley, you need to just get whatever you can do to get out of the car. Um, and it was just this climaxing of all these things happening at one time until that first sign for the small town came. And
Mm,
it was just this pinnacle moment of like, I need to draw all this strength and act on it right now, or
mm,
I might never look back at this situation. And so when that moment came, I just spoke that I was getting out of the car in PSAC. But to describe the voice and the power that spoke through me in those simple words, I mean, it was way beyond me. I did not, in my human self, have the capacity to speak with that level of lucidity and strength. And it literally felt like it cut through the power dynamic and the deception and the confusion that was happening. And as soon as he started to break when we were coming to that small town, I just flew open the front door and jumped out and grabbed my things out of the back.
That's amazing that you even got your stuff.
Stubborn. I'm very
I mean, that's just that's the strength of, no, I'm surviving this and I'm not leaving my luggage behind. Wow. Well, I just want to honor you, and what a great example of the strength that we can call upon when we really, really, really need it. Physical strength to pretend that we're not being drugged when we are, and to dominate somebody who so clearly wants to violate us and our body integrity, and say, no, this will not happen. And that's amazing. I'm going to invite everybody to put some love for Cheyenne into the chat. Let her know what you appreciate about this story. And that would be beautiful. Any final words? Anything you hope readers will take from your story in this book?
the biggest message for me was really the power of our soul, and we don't realize how strong we are often until we're put into those situations. But side by side with that is really the imperative of stepping out of victim consciousness and having my awareness of astrology and the initiations that my personal timeline in life was bringing me through, paired with exactly where I was on the planet and what particular planetary energies were activated for me, and the awareness of how to process trauma somatically, it just allowed me to meet this situation from a place of like, this is happening for me, and to move through it in a way that now, like, I wouldn't change this having happened to me because it made me who I am, and it's brought me to a level of soul empowerment I could have never had before. So I
Right.
use it as a way to inspire people that for me, these particular tools were the difference between carrying around a trauma for the rest of my life and being contracted and afraid, maybe leaving Peru, into actually stepping more and more into living my dreams.
Yeah, you didn't leave Peru. That was just the beginning of your time there. Beautiful. Okay, so we have thank you, Annette. Thank you for sharing this amazing story. So glad you did. Kathy, I admire your strength and courage to fight and for the reminder of mind over matter. Anna, thank you for your courageous spirit, for sharing the story. Vajra Ma, what a powerful teaching and inspiration for anyone who faces something similar. Divine strength in you. Jackie, you're such a teacher of empowerment, inner strength, and grace. Blessings upon your blessings, dear soul. Maureen, thank you, Cheyenne. Such a powerful transformation. I feel honored to have been one of your buddy editors. I loved hearing your bio too. Sending you so much love. Julie, just wow. What a tale of warrior goddess transformation. I greatly appreciate your vulnerability and sharing the inner constructs many of us aren't even aware of. Matthew Bruno, you mentioned it felt like you had a superpower, but that's exactly what I felt emanating from reading it. It inspired me. Beautiful, Hyla. Thank you for sharing your inspire and powerful story. Hearing you tell it is empowering. So Hyla's our copy and line editor and transformer of these stories. Molly McCabe, so inspiring to be able to overcome a biological response to a drug and successfully escape and be whole. Wonderful. All right, well, let's send a breath and a prayer to Cheyenne. Thank you.
Thank you.